Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the answers where we show your questions about Skeleton Crew, Creature Commandos, Superman and Lois. This is going to be kind of like a mashup because we had a few major things drop this week. Roxy and I watched all of them because we're insane. We're crazy people over here. And as I've said multiple times,
I wasn't planning on it. I was not planning on it, DJ.
What?
But you shot me a text yesterday that
Yeah.
I was like, all right, if new dad can do this, I guess I'll do it.
I guess the benefit is for the text yesterday, because I wasn't sure when Creature, they're like, it drops Thursday. In the streaming world, who knows what that means? Is it at 12 a.m. Thursday morning? Is it 6 p.m.? Whatever. But it was already up. Each episode was only 20 minutes. I'm like, all right, I feel like it's not unreasonable to at least float. Like, Roxy, can you squeak these in under the wire?
I know. I got home last night from work at midnight, and I was like, I'm going to do this.
But
then I was like, I am not going to do this. And then I woke up this morning to do it. I was like, I cannot.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier than like Rings of Power. It's like 3 hour plus episodes dropped. And it's like, well, that's not happening.
100%. Yeah, it's not, it was not a difficult watch, and we will discuss it completely. Yes. But as your text alluded to,
yeah,
it's also super duper not my genre.
Yeah. Love. Roxy, as we've discussed before, Roxy hates the medium of animation. No, I'm kidding.
But no, I really don't. But we'll talk.
We'll talk. So, little business up top, as usual. As always, if you want to watch this show early, ad-free, if you want to check out Patreon-exclusive shows like Mutant Academy, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. And every week, I like to pull comments either from Spotify or from YouTube. We actually have a Spotify comment here from Yeshu Wazalewski. This is from our discussion the previous week of what villains should show up in the Batman Part 2. Yeshu says, if they do Deadshot, I think Jimmy Simpson would be a good fit because he can play kind of grizzled. Isn't Jimmy Simpson from Always Sunny in Westworld? Am I thinking about the right person?
Doing a little. Oh yeah, you are thinking of the right person. That's interesting. That would not have been the person that I would have thought.
Me neither.
But listen, I think actors be acting, and so they're able to pull things off that you might not expect.
Yeah. Speaking of, continuing this comment, and hear me out, but Lakeith Stanfield for Deathstroke.
Also not what I would picture, but two really, really talented actors.
Can I tell you, I'll throw this out there. I want to say at one point Lakeith was kind of trying to position himself to play the Joker in something. And I think he should have been the Joker in the Batman.
I could definitely see that more than Deathstroke.
Yes. Yeah. Not that he couldn't get super shredded. And that's the one thing actors in today's day and age seem to be pretty good at, is just getting absolutely yoked. But
here's the secret. Money, by personal trainer, and food.
Yeah, because here's the trick. I was going to add something in there, but it's actually under the same umbrella. To Roxy's point, money also allows you more time. And so those things is helpful. Those two things are...
Not saying it's not cool, just don't be down on yourself if you're not out here getting shredded as quickly as these actors do.
Yeah. Also, we just, for Mutant Academy, speaking of Mutant Academy, Sal and I just did our episodes on Deadpool and Wolverine. That's a 2-part. The first part has already dropped. And there's that sequence at the end where we see Hugh Jackman shirtless. And I want to say he's either 60 or pushing 60. And it's one of those, good work. Also, that can't be great for you. I mean, that has to be, to do that at that age, that has to be a challenge. Just gravity.
I think that's why he's like, I don't want to do this now.
Yeah. And they're like, too bad. Too bad.
You're signed up till you're 100.
Yeah.
He is 56.
56. And great. And the reason it's hard to gauge is because he don't look it. Boy, don't look it. But, I'm just saying.
We talk about people who don't look their age for a second. Sorry, just throwing this out here for one hot second. I just watched Ted Danson's new show on Netflix, which is phenomenal, and I'll talk to you guys more about next week.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, Ted Danson's like 76 years old or something.
Yeah.
He is one handsome man.
Yeah, agreed. Monica was watching that show, and it was one of those, I like Michael Schur. This show does not seem like it's for me, though.
Oh, really? No, I feel like you would like it.
I don't know. It just wasn't clicking. Like nothing bad, all good because it's Ted Danson and I forget the actress's name who's also from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she's also was in In the Heights and Compto, and she's great. And so it's like I like this cast. I like Michael Shore, but I don't know. But anyway, I wasn't the one watching.
I think you would have loved it. It's such a feel-good, like, mini watch. It's so cute. Man on the Inside is what we're talking about, just so you guys know. And Stephanie Beatriz is who DJ is referring to.
Thank you. Coming in for the save. Stephanie Beatriz.
I got you due to my very handy-dandy Google machine.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Going back to the comments, Robert, this is on YouTube, Robert Goyette, 58630 says, new Batman, Lee Pace. Been saying this for like 12 years. Crazy. He's now aged to the point where he can play an older Bruce Wayne, the older Bruce Wayne they want. Also has worked with Gunn before. If you doubt his ability, just watch The Fall. Roxy, what do you think about Lee Pace as Batman?
I don't know Lee Pace.
He's one of those people. He'd been in stuff.
Oh,
I think he's in Bodies. He was good in that.
Oh yeah, he was really good in Bodies. Yeah. He was funny. What do I think about him as Batman?
Yeah. My wife and I were watching, while you think about that, we're watching 21 Jump Street, and I realized that Channing Tatum had a similar trajectory as a Mr. Chris Hemsworth, where it's like, you're handsome and you're good, but it's not until we figure out that you can also be funny that it's like, now we know what to do with you. Now we know how to utilize you to the best of your abilities. I thought of that because of Lee Pace being funny in Bodies.
Yeah, he's so funny there. I didn't watch the Apple series Foundation.
Although I hear good things about it. I've heard nothing but good things. It's just,
too. Yeah, he's been in some things that I've seen, including Captain Marvel. And
because he was played Ronan the Accuser. Yeah.
He was in the Hobbit movies. He plays Thranduil. Thranduil. I don't know him as a performer well enough to know whether he'd be a good not Batman. Performers be performing.
Yeah. Who's to say?
So
yeah.
Handsome.
We're sorry for all the tangents, everybody, but my wife and I are catching them on Silo. I believe a new episode dropped last night that we have not seen. And Roxy, to report back on the first episode, you need glasses. You need glasses.
I watched it on 2 devices.
Not that it's not dark. It is dark. You're not wrong. But just as a friend, you need glasses.
Couldn't see it. But I can see every other episode, and I love this show.
I don't want to spoil it, but was it the second? It was the third episode where we find out who Solo is, the guy behind the vault door. And as he's talking, I'm like, I know this voice. I know it. And about halfway through the episode, I'm like, oh! And I said it, and then it was him. I'm like, I nailed it. And I love the actor, and so I'm so excited to see him be part of the show more.
He's so good. I had the exact same experience.
Yeah, it's like, wait, I know that voice. Wait a second, I can unlock it. Unfortunately, I did. I think it's because I say recently, within the last year, I rewatched War for the Planet of the Apes, where he voices one of the apes. And so because I in my brain already had a performance of his, where I had the voice and not the face, that was how I was able to pull it.
Yeah, it's hard. I gotta say, I'm notoriously bad at this. It's hard when I'm doing movie reactions to animated movies for rejects when I'm watching.
Yeah.
And it's like, we watched Megamind, and I don't Google anything or IMDb anything beforehand, and I couldn't pull Will Ferrell's voice.
Yeah.
Like, that is crazy. But sometimes when you just don't see somebody, and I was like, is that Ben Stiller? I was like, comedian, certain era of my life, and I just couldn't pull his voice.
Yeah.
So odd. But
love that actor. Love the show. Very excited he's in the show. Grendel4397, I want Robin to show up in part 2. I think the next TV show should be about Bane. Bane has a fascinating backstory, and that could set up a Nightfall type event. So those are some people's thoughts about the villains they would like to see. Bane did get a little tease in the Batman, because there's that little green junk that Bruce Wayne injects himself with that kind of is like a steroid. And that is in the comics how the stuff Bane pumps into himself to get jacked. That's how it was introduced as a steroid Batman uses. So hey, also on my personal channel, DJ Talks Trash, you can check out stuff over there. I believe I just dropped a discussion Sal I had about the rumored Sinister Six movie, and coming up will be our discussion on Superman 3. That's live Wednesday, 10 a.m. PST. Check that out. We're not going to do news because we got a bunch to talk about show-wise. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive right into Creature Commandos first. That is actually, of the shows we're talking about today, that is what dropped the most recent as of this recording. And what kind of, normally we might touch on this show. We probably wouldn't spend as much time on it as we are going to. Mostly, Roxy's not as big into the animated outings as I tend to be. But this is technically our first introduction to the DCU, which is the reboot that is being spearheaded by James Gunn, that will have its full launch with the new Superman movie in 2025. This is kind of our early taste. This is part of the continuity. This is also going to be our kind of a checklist of what of the previous stuff is continuity, because apparently certain events in the Suicide Squad are continuity and certain events in Peacemaker are continuity. We can get into that more. But Roxy, I wanted to spend some time on this because I had kind of a weird experience watching it. Because on the one hand, this type of like Z-list weird team of characters is very much my jam. Anything that quotes The Dirty Dozen, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, a big supporter of that, which this does, just like James Gunn's The Suicide Squad did. So if this existed in a vacuum, I'd be like, this is my type of thing. I like these characters, although they do something with one of my favorite DC characters that I don't love, but we'll get into that in a second. So it's like, yeah, like that. As an intro to the DCU, I have concerns. Does that make, you know what I mean? The difference, does that make sense? That like on the one hand, if this was in a vacuum, love it. As the intro to DCU, like,
Wow, I am having the exact opposite issues that you are. So it'll be really interesting to talk to you about this today. But kind of like I continue to say, actors act and they can be all different things.
Yeah.
No part of me thought that Creature Commando would be anything different than what we saw. This isn't making me like, can Gunn and Safran do the DC? Because we knew that this was what Creature Commandos was going to be.
Yeah. And I believe its life cycle began before James Gunn became captain of the DC universe,
But he was attached to it?
Yes, he was always attached to it because of the Suicide Squad and everything, but it began before he became head of the DCU, which is probably why there's some lingering threads. Anyway.
Yeah. But there is a little bit of my only concerns about the Gunn Safran thing, which isn't really a concern and more just a question or clarification question, is obviously we very quickly find out that both the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker are canon in this world. Mm-hmm. And this world is voiced by the actors that are going to go on to, in live action, star in Superman.
Yeah. Specifically, Frank Grillo is going to be he's both in Peacemaker and Superman as Rick Flag Sr. Yeah.
So I have questions on what that means and who's in our world and who's not in our world. And especially because we saw interactions on Peacemaker with people that now I'm curious if what that means. So I think we've heard James Gunn say this is light canon. And I think that we need a little clarification on that, but I'm okay with that too. Like, all right, I guess, sure.
I believe
comic books are light canon.
Exactly. I believe what James Gunn has clarified is the Suicide Squad is canon and Peacemaker is canon, except for the scene where the Justice League shows up at the end, and that will be clarified further in Peacemaker season 2, which as a comic reader, comics do this bullshit all the time. Yeah. Specifically DC loves to do this where like, hey, we're doing a massive line-wide reboot except for this and this, and it's like, fucking why are you doing that?
So my one thing about this is, did you keep these properties because they're yours?
Yes.
And that's and the answer to that is 100% yes.
Yes.
Nobody would argue the answer to that is no.
Yeah.
It's not like these properties made by far and away the most sense moving forward.
Yeah.
So it does make me question whether he is somebody who's able to kill his babies or not.
Okay.
Which
Yes. Oh, totally. And this leads into some my concerns are, again, in a vacuum, I love this. It is also very similar tonally to the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, which is fine. That said, I'm now at a point where, like, you've done these 3 specific things that I really like. None of these things are Superman. You know what I mean? None of these things are I'm kind of hoping this isn't the energy we go into Superman with. And to your point about killing your darlings, this is the first time I've seen an animated series.
Sorry, bad choice of words for me for this episode.
Yeah,
killing your darlings is better.
This is the first time I've watched an animated series where the creator gets his own title card in it, and I'm like, coming hot off the heels of the Snyderverse, maybe don't do this. Maybe don't do this.
Yeah. I think what's working in your favor and isn't working in mine is that I'm gonna watch this series because I watch all DC things.
Yeah.
This was super not for me.
Yeah.
And I'm the only person I've spoken to who this show was not for me. The second episode, in fact, made me really sad.
Well,
and
yeah, we'll dive into that more because the second episode gets in. There are elements that even in a vacuum, I find troubling, for lack of a better word, but keep going.
It's just, I think, what was interesting about this, DJ, is that because I'm not familiar with the animated medium as much as other people are.
Yeah.
Even sometimes the way that it was shot, I was like, is my television glitching?
Yeah.
What is happening here? And what are they trying to convey to me? To the point where after both episodes, after I watched one, I read a synopsis, which I've never in my life for a 20-minute DC thing had to read. I read a synopsis. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I did get that. Just making sure. And then after 2, I was like, that part that's like jump. Did I understand? Was that like the passing of time for what? Because I'm not familiar with this medium.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is it telling me? I'm not exactly positive. And so I just thought of it more as a comic book, which I'm way more familiar with than animated shows. And I was like, I think that they're just trying to show me different segments.
Yeah.
And I read a summary of that too, but I didn't. These were well made, and I like some of the characters. The actors are stellar.
Yeah.
But I heard specifically a Frank Grillo interview with Christian Harloff before this dropped.
Yeah.
And Frank Grillo said, this is like unbelievable. This is R-rated, raunchy, out there. And so I was expecting Harley Quinn the animated series.
Yeah.
And that is not what I got.
No. Yeah, much less of Harley Quinn leans into being a comedy, and this is more of a superhero movie. It just happens to be animated. When you said you like some of the characters, what were the standouts for you?
The Bride, I really like. I liked her.
Yeah.
Even the 2 people on screen right now, I like their dynamic together.
Yeah, it's the Bride and Nina Mazursky, I believe, is the character's name.
Yes. Sorry to the audio listeners.
Yeah.
And I really like Rick Flag Sr. Of course, I like Amanda Waller.
Yeah.
We already know that. But I thought that they were probably the standouts for me.
I was surprised that I kind of liked Phosphorus too. I like the way where we're positioning him and kind of his frenemy relationship with Rick Flag Sr. Again, I like these characters from the comics. I like the concept of it, and again, I like anything. I like the Suicide Squad a lot.
Me too.
I kind of hope what the show elaborates on more is I'm a little uncomfortable with the way in these first 2 episodes sex is utilized, because on the one hand, we get spoilers. I believe the princess. So the setup for anybody that didn't watch the setup is there is a Eastern Bloc, a fictionalized Eastern Bloc country that is being attacked by Cersei, and crazy. This is the first time we're getting Cersei in one of like an official, like if this was still under the previous regime, theoretically this Cersei's fighting Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, which is wild. But Cersei is leading a group of dude bros basically called the Sons of Themyscira to attack this country, and they're in the American interests align with them. So Waller is sending the Creature Commandos because they're due to the events of Peacemaker, she's not allowed to do the Suicide Squad anymore. And so they meet
good setup.
Princess.
This is a really solid setup.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and it's a lot more. The way they structure it is like, oh, this can fuel a show as opposed to like the Suicide Squad, which has to take place over like what, a couple days. Like these people are here now for the duration. We meet Princess Alana, who's voiced by Maria Bakalova, who people know from Bodies, 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 and Borat 2. And she's
going to be in the Superman Peacemaker world as well.
Yeah,
which they've talked about. Yeah.
She immediately gets, for lack of a better word, a hard on for Rick Flag Sr. And this very much read to me like middle-aged man, midlife crisis, wish fulfillment. Like, yeah, this, because there's like a 30-year age gap between the actors, and not saying this, she's depicted as an adult. It is lightly implied that maybe Rick Flag Sr. is slightly younger than maybe Frank, or no, actually probably the same age, because the spoiler, the age difference between Rick Flag Sr. and Rick Flag Jr. is not that, is not an 18-year age gap. But it was one of those like, this feels kind of weird. This makes me feel uncomfortable.
I gotta say, I had no issue with the age at all.
Yeah.
No problem with that, but because she's an adult. But
yeah.
I thought that this was like my least favorite part of the 2 episodes that I've seen.
Yeah.
Was how strangely like Princess Alana.
Yeah.
Princess Alana threw herself at him.
Yeah.
In a way that felt like a 90s cartoon to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I understand that they're talking about, she wants to be brought into the 21st century.
Sure.
And she wants people who look at her like a human, and he does. But I still thought that this was the least nuanced thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, okay. And in live action, that wouldn't have been okay. This wouldn't have worked. So maybe people just are like, oh, because it's animated, it does work.
Yeah.
But to me, it didn't work. And in listening to Frank Grillo's interview, he talked about how he's actually in the room with Maria when they were recording this VO.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is so, like, what is your character motivation here? This is so strange. And for him then to be the good guy who like turned her down, which just is so the opposite of everything that they painted about him so far.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those. And whenever like you get something like this, where like a middle-aged guy is writing, like, yeah, and this middle-aged guy, and this like hot 20-something, maybe she's even like late teens. She's just throwing herself at this guy. Isn't that crazy? It's like, yeah, I get it, man. I get it. All right, but like maybe cool it, calm down. This also the other big. I was surprised about the amount of sex scenes in these 2 episodes. It's more than we've gotten in the live action DCU. But we get the backstory for the bride, and I'm a big fan of Frankenstein in the comics. Roxy, you will be surprised to learn Frankenstein in the comics is not nearly as much of an incel as he is depicted as in the show. He's much more like they position him much more as like a classic pulp hero. Like you think of your like Doc Savage or whatever, but what if it was Frankenstein? And so he's this cool swashbuckling adventurer that happens to be the classic Frankenstein's monster. And a part of his story is that the bride.
When you were just talking about Frankenstein, you're talking about the monster.
The monster, which he goes by Frankenstein, and there's an explanation in the comics. I'm assuming there's one in the show as well, but we haven't gotten it yet. So, but that is an important clarification. I appreciate that. And the bride exists in the comics, and part of the tragic backstory is that this is literally the only person he can be with, and she has no interest in him, and so that's it. So it's not that this. It's not that I don't understand where this read comes from of the character, and it does allow for James Gunn to position the bride more as a centralized figure, and so I understand that. as a person that likes Frankenstein from the comics, this kind of ruins the character in that he's irredeemable. Like I don't know how you would get from where we position the character here to a version something close approximating the version of the character I like from the comics. Like I don't know how you bridge that gap, because it's like he's really not good here. Not a good dude.
More in the second you're talking about the second episode now.
Yeah, the second episode.
Yeah. I agree with you. This episode made me like wildly sad. And I guess it's not fair to the genre, because I do appreciate how beautifully done everything is.
Yeah.
But I'm just not looking for my DC comic animated 20-minute show to make me feel icky and sad. And this episode really did. I felt so, I mean, for the Victor, you feel horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. For the bride, you feel horrible. This becomes the jump cut sequence. It's a stalker show.
Yeah.
And she has a horrific stalker.
Yes.
Who is abusive, murdering stalker.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe I changed my mind, and maybe who knows? Shows can be long and many seasons, but as of now, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And they might walk it back some. We've walked back, Peacemaker had that line in the Suicide Squad, I value peace more than anything, and I don't care how many men, women, and children I have to kill to achieve it. And they walk that back in Peacemaker the show. Weasel, when we're first introduced to him in the Suicide Squad, he killed 27 children. They lightly walk that back in this show, like maybe he didn't. Maybe, so maybe we'll do that with Frank. But it was weird. Part of that story is, and what Roxy's alluding to is, in this, Frankenstein the monster is much more interested in it, like pushing hard for Victor Frankenstein to make him a bride. And he's just big incel energy. When she shows up, like he really she's very much turned off by him, which is it's more complicated than that, but whatever. The other weird part about it is she ends up having a sexual relationship with Victor the Creator, which is another paternalistic sexual relationship. And it's like, James Gunn, what's going on, man? What are we working through here? And then what I'm hoping is maybe thematically by the end of the series that actually we comment on that. Like, isn't it weird that these older paternalistic father figures are having sex with younger daughter ladies? That's fucking weird, right? I'm worried that they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I also feel like the commentary for her, it's the better of the two men that she knows is who she has feelings for. But like, there's a whole world out there of good people, and you don't have to be with somebody who is literally your creator. Yeah. Even though you're devastated about the loss of him, maybe he wasn't the best dude either for that. Yeah. A lot of this is just, to me, themes that whether they explore it or not, I'm not interested in.
Yeah. Totally.
Exploring on this show.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is the right method for it.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean it's not well done.
No.
And certainly when people are like, animation is not just for children, and I'm like, yeah, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But clearly this show is like,
it sure ain't. Ain't. Yeah, it sure ain't. But we'll see. I'm interested to see where it goes. Like Roxy said, I'm into a lot of it. Again, I'm disappointed as a fan of Frankenstein the Monster from the comics and the direction they're headed in. But maybe we'll also, like, David Harbour, that's good casting. It bums me out. But the good news is, pretty much everybody, like, I like what they're doing with Bride. I like what they're doing with Nina Mazursky. I like Dr. Phosphorus. I like Rick Flag Sr., despite the weird romance subplot. So we'll see G.A. Robot and his utter devotion to killing Nazis. There's a lot of potential here. I like this type of thing. So we'll see where it goes, and we'll see how it connects with the larger DCU moving forward. But speaking of DC shows and properties, we also got the finale of Superman and Lois. This is the series finale to Superman and Lois. This is season 4, episode 10. It went by so fast. We covered the premiere, I believe, a couple weeks back. And so now we're checking back in, and this is not just the end of Superman and Lois. This is also, in a spiritual way, Flash was the official end of the Arrowverse. This is kind of the spiritual end of the Arrowverse, and this is also the end of DC TV being on WBCW, starting with Smallville, leading to this. So, kind of interesting bookends there. Roxy, what did you think about the finale of Superman and Lois?
So I watched the final season. I watched every episode of the final season from when you and I started and till the completion. Did you watch? I think you watched the first couple episodes and then you watched the finale.
Yeah, I fell off. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, makes total sense. I would doubt you were confused. You probably
No. Yeah, I was totally fine. I was like, "Yep, got it."
Yeah, totally. That's because I do feel like the season was really strong, but it did drag a little in the middle, and there was some repeat beats, and it was like, okay, let's get there. I was a little surprised with what they decided to do with this finale.
Yeah,
because they essentially spoilers.
Let's spoil it up.
Spoilers. Essentially, what they do is they spend the majority of the episode taking out the Lex Luthor problem of it all, and then they spend the next part of the episode summing up the rest of Superman's life. And I didn't know that that's where we were going to go, but I did find myself getting unexpectedly very emotionally attached to these people and connected. And I do think there was a lot of concepts in here that I would love to have seen explored if these were full seasons. Yeah. Like, for the same reason that I've always been more interested in Superman's dad having a problem that was medical, so Superman couldn't fix him. Yeah. I think that concept of Lois Lane, they introduced Lois Lane getting cancer. And, those are things that Superman wouldn't be able to help. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting, but I also thought that the way they depicted death was beautiful. When he finally gets to her was beautiful. And how he's like, the first time I died versus the second was completely different. And I think it goes to the concept of like when you're fulfilled and ready versus when you're not. Yeah. And that's where we all hope to be. That's best case scenario, Yeah. So I thought they did a really good job with a lot of it. But also it felt, I don't want to say rushed, like the pacing was off, but rushed like, oh, wow, we're going through his whole life for the last 10 minutes. I did not expect that. Yeah, it was funny. That wasn't funny. Whatever. It was a funny anecdote. I had a friend that I was talking to after the first couple episodes, and he's like, what I think they're going to do is because they keep talking about it being the death of Superman, and, they just did the heart thing. I wonder if he's actually going to now, with the human heart, which happened, I think, episode 3 or whatever, if eventually he'll age and die, which is exactly, they called it, is exactly what happened. And I think it was really effective. And I liked that. I liked a lot of it. I did think some of it was, and maybe this is stuff that would have been fleshed out had I watched the rest of the season, but like we get the tail end of the Doomsday fight. Doomsday looks way closer to the comics by the end, which is dope. I liked that. But when they're like, yeah, okay, now I just need to throw him in the sun. I'm like, time out. Could you just throw him in the sun this whole time? Did we not know that? That actually wasn't particularly fleshed out. Yeah, wait, could we have just thrown him into the sun this entire time and been done with it? Yeah. I think it's because Lois had this connection and thought she was going to be able to help and save, but then he's too far gone. So, but I'm with you there. And then Doomsday was like, no, I've got it from here. I'm like, what? Wait, what? Not that I hated it. I was just one of those like, wait, what's going on? I also want to know, did we, and maybe you guys can help in the comments as well, did we just introduce the Lana John Henry relationship this season, or did that seem like something we'd seeded throughout? I think we must have seen it last season, which I didn't watch because when I saw it this season, I was like, oh, yeah. But I remember her and her ex being on the rocks when I was watching. Yeah. So I kind of just put the pieces together. Yeah, which I like that. It's like, yeah, put two of your most beautiful people together. That makes sense. That's how CW works. I remember these shows. But they actually did seem to have chemistry. Oh, Mike says they introduced the relationship this season. Really? Yeah. There was no reference to this last year? That feels a little late in the game. But yeah, get those two beautiful people smooching. Come on, CW. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think it still worked. I'm surprised how much I loved this finale, considering I didn't watch 2 seasons of the show.
Yeah. I was impressed. Considering I not only missed the last 2 seasons, but a bulk of this season, I thought it was really I thought it was a really effective finale. And I'm glad. I know, production wise, they had their budget cut and stuff for this season, but it felt like by and large they were able to end the show on their own terms, which is really cool for them. And I thought it was effective. What did you think about? Did you like Lex Luthor more once he shaved the beard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
You're like, that helps.
But it did help. And the longer I spent with him, he's a really good actor. He just still didn't feel like Lex to me.
Yeah.
Because I super duper didn't believe that he was the smartest guy in any room.
Yeah.
Because he was such a whiny crybaby.
I liked that. And again, remember everybody, Roxanne missed like the last 2 seasons, but I knew they had Bruno Mannheim in a previous season. Thanks to our viewers, they let us know that was kind of the setup for Lex. And when Lex gets back to prison, like Bruno comes out and he's like, yeah, basically, yeah, bitch, you're going to be my chair. And then Superman and Lois, they have a revelation of like, maybe it's not just like saving people through like stopping supervillains, but like, doing organization and stuff like that. And one of the people they reach out to was Bruno. I'm like, well, the last scene I just saw him in was threatening Lex Luthor in prison. So maybe I'm clearly missing some context here of why this is a positive thing that we're doing. But I liked in the kind of final montage that, because this felt more Superman to me, the idea they float like, hey, forgiveness. And we don't know what Lex's situation is by the time Clark dies. But, we see that Clark in his last moments forgives Lex. And I'm like, that's Superman. Yeah, that's it. That's the good stuff.
Totally. Yeah, I like the watching of the grappling too of whether or not Superman's kid should help. This was in the finale, but also in the penultimate episode where those feel like the My Superman moments to me, where it's not just about forgiveness, but like teamwork, and you can't do it alone, even though you are Superman. And, like Lois, this is one of my favorite iterations of Lois, because Lois is the one who's like, our kids need to help. And she is smart enough to push that on when Superman is the one who's like, no, I want to keep them safe there. But he would have died. So there were moments that really felt like this was the Superman that I've been wanting to see on screen for a while. Yeah. And I think they did a really good job with that.
Very cool. I also liked in the montage at the end where we take the 2 actors that play the sons, who are adults, but they look young, but because they look young and we cast them as high schoolers, we have to recast them for the montage at the end. And it's like, well, this is a no-win situation. Yeah, this is a no-win situation, really.
Totally.
Maybe you could have had the kids grow a beard, or they're probably old enough to grow beards. Like, I don't know. Anyway, it was a good finale. I hope the people that have been watching the show since the beginning and stuck through it, unlike Roxy and I, really it meant as much to them as it meant to us. And I will say this, Roxy, we also watched the final season of The Flash. And again, I know pretty early on in the show's run, it was determined that this was it's a Arrowverse adjacent, not like as connected to the other shows. But I'm going to choose this point to say this is where the Arrowverse ended, as opposed to the Flash finale, because this was a way better finale.
I'm so with you. Yeah. I think that this show wasn't burdened by what Flash was burdened by.
Yeah.
And because it was really more standalone. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. This is, in my mind, this is the Arrowverse CW finale. This is what it was. Okay. So jumping across our streams, going over to Disneyland, metaphorically, not literally. We're going to be talking about the new Star Wars show on Disney Plus, Skeleton Crew. This also dropped its first 2 episodes this week. This could be a real adventure and way out past the barrier. The synopsis is 4 kids make a mysterious discovery on their home planet that leads them to get lost in a strange and dangerous galaxy. Roxy, what did you think of the first 2 episodes of The Skeleton Crew?
The number one word is cute. Super cute. I thought the show was super cute. I really like, what's his name, Neil?
Neil's great. Neil's a legend in the making. I think you and I had different feelings on this show, but Neil's a winner.
So cute. Yeah, I thought the show was super cute. I didn't, at this point, it's nothing to write home about for me. But I found it endearing. I liked these kids and their curious nature.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it was cool to see kind of the suburbs of Star Wars, uh, which I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
So, and I like that, that we hear a little more like that's a rumor of that planet. That
Yeah.
planet doesn't actually exist. So, yeah, I think that there would be so many different corners of Star Wars, and I think that this is an interesting one to explore. So, I honestly, I know that's such a cop out answer, but I don't really have that many more thoughts than that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's what it was.
It's funny because it's also coming from John Watts, who people will know from the Marvel Spider-Man movies, the MCU Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland. And it's funny how they seem to have like pegged him as the guy that works with kids, although he also worked on he directed the first couple episodes of that Jeff Bridges show that I like, The Old Man. And it was this is one of those things, Roxy, where I'm watching and I'm like, wow, this is really well put together. I see what we're doing, and it means absolutely nothing to me. It doesn't just, the idea of like, what if Goonies but Star Wars? That's white noise to me. That doesn't it doesn't move the needle for me at all.
Yeah, I think that's so fair, DJ, and I think that that's exactly what the show was meant to do and trying to do. I think that this show and John Watts had a clear vision of what this show would be.
Yeah.
And as you and I always talk about, it's okay if we're not the audience for something.
Yeah.
And I could see you just not being the audience for this and acknowledging, cool that it exists, happy for the people that it is the audience for, glad they like it. It doesn't move the needle for me.
Well, I heard some discussion. One, I don't, Roxy, you'll be surprised, Lauren. I don't spend as much time on Twitter as I used to for a variety, not just baby, for a variety of reasons. In fact, when I go, you can find me on Blue Sky, also DJ Talks Trash. When I go on to promote a show, it's almost always like a mistake. It's like, oh yeah, this is why I left. This is big, as of today, a big discourse on Marissa Tomei. I guess her being old and hot has entered the culture war, whatever. It's a bleak place over there, but I say all this to say, I don't know what the discourse is around this show other than it seems to be largely positive. Do you have a better beat on that than I do?
I really don't, because I'm also off of the Twitter.
Yeah.
I pop on maybe, what'd you say?
Probably for the best for both of us.
Yeah, I pop on maybe once a week, and usually it's to repost what you've tagged me in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all I know are the people I've spoken to.
Yeah.
And the people I've spoken to have been the people in our space, which are Christian Harloff, Steph Sabra, the people that I know like Star Wars, and they seem to think that this is cute.
Yeah.
Also, sweet. Are going to finish watching it, but it's not for us. I think people with kids are excited about this.
Well, yeah, because that's something I was going to mention is you've heard me talk about when I talk about my adventures with Superman or the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that it's when I see that stuff, it's like, wow, it's cool that there's going to be a generation that this is their introduction to that stuff because it's real good. And I heard some discourse around this Star Wars, this being kind of that, you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is a good introduction for younger people for Star Wars. You know, Star Wars is always kind of a kid's thing. But, and it was one of those like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess just I'm not a Star Wars guy then, because you're right. I see that when people pointed that out to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But it was one of those like, I'm more excited to show my kid my adventures with Superman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. That excites me more.
I think we've learned over the years, DJ, that this isn't your franchise.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's not going to be the random things like Andor that you really appreciate. So yeah, and you're going to really like, because it's a whole universe, so you're going to find corners that you like. But in general, this is not your franchise. And I get that. I think that you have problems with some of the core principles of this franchise, not the least of which include the Jedi. And whether they are all good or problematic or what. And media that questions that are the things that excite you.
Yeah.
And that definitely not what this show does.
No. To that point, Mike Joyce says in the chat, I saw the hate mongers like Star Wars Theory liked it, so I guess this is being pretty well received. And I will say, you probably didn't have this. This is probably me being petty, but I guess I'm still smarting a little bit after the Acolyte. And it's like, yeah, of course the Star Wars fans are liking it, because I feel like Star Wars, if you want a safe Star Wars bet, Bet on if you can make 40-year-old men feel like they're kids again, then they'll probably like it. And it's like I kind of resent that. I kind of resent that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think you like the principles of this franchise.
Yeah.
And I think that there are little areas that you will find that you will like. Crazy enough, the most well-received of all the shows is Andor.
Yeah.
So that's also wild. You
Yeah.
know, I can't really wrap my head around the fact that people like that, but they don't get it. You know,
Yeah.
we're finding more and more that people don't understand the principles of the things that they're watching.
Oh, for real. You're probably not watching... you're probably not watching a lot of Christmas movies in this household, this month, and so many of them are like, yeah, the big money people are bad, and it's like, so nobody watched these movies. It's a Wonderful Life. So nobody watched this or understood Mary Poppins, which isn't even a Christmas movie. All that stuff about how banks are like bankers and banks and all that stuff. It just is a culture where like, cool, and then we moved on.
Yeah, it is very odd. One of the things that's been happening to me this month, is that I've been watching Lord of the Rings movies, and I'm getting absolutely destroyed over them, which has been a wild experience. And I'm like, oh, you guys missed the point of the movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
the point is white guy fights DEI, right? That's the point of Lord of the Rings, right? That's what it is.
This is so crazy. Like, it's really about friendship and community and love and kindness. And it's crazy to watch. We see it all the time with DC. We see it with Marvel. We see it with Star Trek. We see it with Star Wars. We see it with Lord of the Rings. I want to say we see it with Harry Potter, but the creator of Harry Potter, cat's out of the bag on that.
Yeah.
So I actually don't know what the purpose was.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what the purpose was, but now I don't. Maybe I made up the purpose. But it's weird. It's really strange to watch people love Andor and not understand the concept of Andor or what it's really trying to say.
So moving out of our broad where Skeleton Crew fits and who should or shouldn't like it or whatever, I did want to take a second. I did want to mention we spent second episode on Pirate World. Liked the pirate stuff. Mostly I like all the creature designs. Big fan of, in this picture, if you're watching the video, we've got Werewolf Pirate. Big fan of Werewolf Pirate guy. We've set up the larger mystery of where the planet these kids come from, which they're running around with what appears to be old Republic credits. And this is set post Return of the Jedi, and everybody seems to be surprised about that.
Who's surprised about that?
The pirate people, whenever they see the little gold credit.
Sorry, they meant the audience.
No. The pirate in universe. So we've set up a little mystery around the planet they're coming from, and we're also introduced to Jude Law's character, who I should have the name pulled up here. I'll say it's kind of dumb, so it didn't stick in my brain. But anyway, we've introduced to his character, and I wanted to briefly touch on Jude Law's character. We imply that he's a Jedi because he does a little force move at the end, but he's definitely the pirate captain at the beginning of the first episode, right? The one that everybody mutinies against, that has the helmet on that we don't see. That's clearly going to be Jude. That's going to be the reveal later that that's Jude Law, right?
I think, but I'm not sure.
Which leads me to wonder.
Jod Nawud?
Yeah, that's dumb. That's a dumb name. That's a good Star Wars name. Jod Nawud. Yeah, that's dumb. So which I wanted
I don't think it's dumb.
I wanted to ask you, Roxy, do we think... because I'm looking at the cast list. By the way, again, if you're watching the video, yes, that is Steve Urkel standing next to Werewolf Pirate guy. That's Jaleel White.
I love Jaleel White.
He's great. And good for him for being in the Star Wars. But I wanted to ask you, Roxy, do we think... I feel pretty convinced pirate captain that is mutinied against in the opening is going to be Jude Law. Is he actually force sensitive? Is this like a trick that he's pulling?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Where are you leaning?
I would think actually, because a trick that he's pulling, but it does feel a little nefarious when the kids find him. Mm-hmm. And, immediately our main little guy, what's his name?
Wim.
Wow, I don't remember that. Yeah. Immediately Wim's like, it's a Jedi, and he's like obsessed with the Jedi.
Yeah.
So it could be like a little too easy, but no, No, I would think he is. What do you think?
But isn't it also a little weird that, like, well, the next episode really needs, one of the kids needs to ask him about this. If you could get the key the whole time, what are you doing in here? Why are you in here? Like, if you could just
Yeah, I don't know.
use force powers to get the key over.
I was thinking the same thing. He's like, I can help you. I'm like, but can you help yourself?
Yeah, but wait. So why are you here, dude? So maybe he's been set up as a plant to lead them back or whatever. But that stuff, once we got to Pirate World and we got to Jude Law, I became a little bit more interested. I didn't love suburb Star Wars because, again, I think it feeds into. I think I push back a little bit, Roxy, in saying that there's some core things about Star Wars I don't like, and I would position it more as there's some core things about modern Star Wars I don't love, which is how snake eating its own tail, self-referential it is. Like, when you have a kid in a Star Wars show playing with Star Wars action figures, it's like, what are we doing? What I understand conceptually because he's obsessed with Jedi, but it's like, can we not market our own? Can we not sell our action figures in the show? It just broke my brain a little bit in a way that it's like, I just, Star Wars.
Businesses are going to business, DJ.
Yeah, I know.
Money, honey. Ooh-wee.
But we'll see. You know what? Again, this is not me saying I'm not bagging on it. I'm saying I hate it. I will probably, especially for this show, try and keep up. Although it feels maybe a little less vital than other Star Wars things we've covered. What about you, Roxy? Do you think you're going to keep up with this, or you're like, I'll check in when the season's over or whatever?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm more excited to keep up with this than I am Creature Commandos. So
Yeah.
But I'm gonna keep up with both.
Yeah.
So, but this is gonna be the one that I'm more excited for, I think.
Yeah. So,
and I know that this is crazy, but sometimes if I really like one character, it can drive a whole show for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Neil is so effing cute and sweet and such a good little homie friend.
Yeah.
And like, I love characters like this, maybe because I am coming off of Lord of the Rings where Sam Wise just is everything to me.
Yeah.
But I love the bestie who's just like, he's not into getting us in trouble, but if you're like, here's what we're doing, he's like, I'm down, I'm in.
Yeah.
Like, just such a good ride or die friend. And because of him, I genuinely think without him, I don't know that I would have liked this. But I was like, oh yeah, I like this dude.
Yeah, 100%, Roxy, because again, nobody's surprised to hear that, like, yeah, more of the pirate stuff that interested me more than like the kids in the suburbs shit that don't care about that. But what got me through that, because that was the whole first episode basically, is Neil. Because Neil is one of the things that Star Wars is still good at doing. He's a cool special effect, because we're talking about the blue elephant kid. But you're right, his personality is great. It's like, Neil's a winner, man. Like, Neil needs to be. We need to keep Neil, protect Neil. And I will say this: as much as I am kind of frustrated that this feels like it's getting a pass, and of course, we had a lot of discourse on the Acolyte was torn to shreds. I am glad that people are receiving well, if for no other reason that these kids don't deserve any of that heat. They don't deserve it, man. They're just doing a job, and they're doing a good job.
I was thinking that too. Like, it's just ridiculous when, as a society, we go after children.
Yeah, and these kids are good. They're good. They're doing a good job. And so we'll see. I do think there's the bones of something cool that could, especially as we get more into the pirate stuff. If we do that could be really cool.
I saw some comments on social media that were like, you can really tell they're acting, and it's like,
they're children, man.
They're children,
and what does that mean? Anyway,
they're in spaceships and like traveling. And what do you mean? Of course, they're acting. They're acting.
The thing that got me more is when Wim was like going around the ship and he finds the skeletons or whatever, and then he pulls up an old timey pirate spyglass. I'm like, who is that for, man? You are on a spaceship. Where did that come from? I get the show is trying to evoke old pirate shit to me. What does this mean in the context of this universe, man? Yeah. But again, and I like cute stuff. Like, I like the robot that they convince that the girl's the captain, and he turns out he whips ass. I think he's voiced by Nick Frost, which is always, cool. I always have mixed feelings on, because on the one hand, like, my dudes, you have an issue with how expensive these shows are. Stop getting A-list actors to voice your robots, man. That saves some money, dude. On the other hand, I love Nick Frost, so.
Yeah. I hear you.
Anyway, those are our thoughts on Skeleton Crew, Creature Commandos, and the finale of Superman and Lois. Roxy, remind the kids at home where they can find you.
What a big week for us,
I
DJ.
know.
Wild.
We
Like those are three. That's a DC, a Star Wars, a DC. We got like those are the big franchises. If you want to keep telling me about these things, then you can find me at Roxy Stryer. Crust is out on Amazon now. If you guys want to check it out, I am
rent or buy it.
Yeah.
Go rent or buy that shit. You can find me at DJ Talks Trash everywhere that matters, increasingly on Blue Sky. And you can find the show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers. I'm not on Blue Sky yet. I should probably figure that out, how to get Only Stupid Answers onto Blue Sky, but we'll try. We'll figure that out. But if you find Only Stupid Answers on Twitter/X,
you got the vowels from stupid. I was wondering how you were going to get back there.
I know. I'm a little all over the map. Yeah, I'm a little all over the map today, but that's okay. I want to thank everybody that joined us live or checked us out on Patreon, and we'll see you all next time.